If there's one thing that having played games for decades has taught me, it's that no matter how incredible a game announcement is, you've really got to wait until the finished product before getting your hopes up. As was the case with Armorines Project S.W.A.R.M. When the concept was first announced, it was quite easy to get carried away with just how awesome the game sounded when I read it in magazines. After the huge success that was Turok 2, Acclaim announced that their next first-person shooter wouldn't be Turok 3, which many of us were expecting. It would instead be a new IP called Armorines based on their comic books of the same name. The way they pitched it to fans was Turok meets Starship Troopers, the cult classic movie which many of us adored in the 1990s. You were tasked with defending the Earth from an alien invasion as a souped up space marine, and I was instantly sold. The thought of the awesome Turok engine combined with aliens across an intergalactic plot made me eager to get my hands on what should have been a masterpiece. Sadly, by the time that the game landed in late 1999, the initial idea hadn't turned out quite so well, and it would appear that Acclaim couldn't quite kill the bugs which had been present even since Turok 1. The game is your quite straightforward first-person shooter. You have huge 3D environments, an arsenal of high-power weaponry, and you explore the level killing bugs, unlocking doors, and working your way towards the eventual boss who crops up from time to time. With the game coming from Acclaim London, not Acclaim Austin of the Turok games, the team did have the opportunity to really go to town and to make a more engrossing experience. Firstly, you have a points-based system which rewards you as a player with promotions for meeting certain objectives and mission parameters. There are also 2 characters to choose from, which does add a little replayability to the game in a similar way which was later used in Turok 3. Firstly, you have Tony Lewis, who is a cookie cutter type hero. He has a slower but stronger starting weapon. And then you also have Myra Lane, who is a more orthodox player, and her weapons reflect this as she has a weaker but faster initial weapon. You can play the game in solo or in a cool co-op mode, each controlling one of the main characters. But whoever you choose to play as, you will instantly feel at home in the game, as if you played any of the Turok series previously. After all, the game is running the Turok 2 engine and the controls are identical. One added improvement is the sense of speed though. The characters move much more freely and quickly than in Turok, and so there will be a little adjustment period if you've been used to the slower pace of Joshua Fireseed's movements. Speaking of the adjustment period, the aiming has also been altered, but for the worse. The crosshair seems to slide around the screen a little too loosely for my liking. I tried the game with multiple gamepads and I can never quite find the perfect level of accuracy that I was looking for. Thankfully though, the game doesn't rely on pinpoint shots a whole lot. The arsenal is rather disappointing in a sense that it feels quite uninspired. After the incredible cerebral bore from Turok 2, I had big hopes for some insane weaponry, but everything falls into the generic categories of standard weaponry from a sci-fi game. One area where the game does shine however though is its visuals. The use of the expansion pack is a must really to enjoy the excellent animations and lighting effects that certain areas of the game will show off. The range of movements is also impressive as you battle through caves, facilities, volcanoes and ice-swept mountains. The fog from Turok 2 makes an appearance, however this time it doesn't seem to limit the visuals quite as much as it did in that game. The textures are also a mixed bag, as you'll often see some which are gorgeous, but then moments later be walking through a grainy and blurry mess of a section. The design of the aliens is top notch though. It was actually really enjoyable to see a new weird alien enter the battle, and learning their attack patterns and styles. The AI is incredibly well done, and during the game you'll see different hordes attack you in a string of well constructed manoeuvres. The biggest problem with the enemies though is that there are huge swathes of the levels where you won't encounter many of them at all. For a game about an alien invasion, it was disappointing that most of the time there weren't all that many of the crafty beings actually gunning for your blood. And at the times when the game does throw more than a handful at you at the same time, the frame rate stutters whether you're playing with or without the expansion pack. The slowdown is also clearly visible in the multiplayer mode, and it naturally gets worse the more human players you're up against. But perhaps the single biggest problem with the game is that it's just not that fun to play. In my opinion, this comes down to one big flaw, and that's the level design because it's awful. Many times you'll be stuck wandering around not knowing exactly what you should be doing or have the slightest clue where you need to go. There are some fun set pieces, but very few times where you'd look back and you think, whoa, that was an epic moment in the game. This is also partly the fault of the game's sound. While they put some thought into where to have the epic scores and where to have the more creepy, slower paced music, nothing at all stands out as being memorable. The music won't annoy you, but after putting many hours into the game, I couldn't even hum you any of the game's scores. But the effects are spot on. The enemies give off squeaks and hisses, and in small, secluded areas or darkened caves, this does add a sense of panic and an eeriness which is unsurprisingly creepy. Ultimately, however though, the game really failed to live up to the early promises that were made. It's not a bad game, just frustratingly average, and the on-rails levels appear far too often and become a chore that you're grown at as soon as they appear. So naturally the game was met with a cool reaction on its launch. This surprised Acclaim more than anyone else, as they had announced and even planned the sequel before the release of this. But after Armorines sold so poorly, they would quickly shelve the plans that they had and they'd never return to the series again. So for today's topic of conversation, I want to know where you think Acclaim got the game so wrong. Was it the confusing level design or the fiddly shooting mechanics? Or was it the simple fact they were all really waiting for Turok 3 and instead they released this first? Or perhaps you really like this game, and so I'd love to know what you enjoyed about it and if you're still playing it to this day. So as always, sound off in the comments section down below, and until next time.